According to a group of Australian Aborigines called the Gaguju, the world always existed. But long ago, before the dream time, it had no shape. Then, at the beginning of the dream time, the time of Genesis, creator beings came out of the sea to form the land and to create life. "200 years ago, all of Australia was occupied by Aborigines. But now only a few groups remain on their traditional lands. The Gaguju is one of these. The land on which they live is called Kakadu. It belongs to the Aborigines and is managed on their behalf as a national park. Kakadu is dominated by a sandstone escarpment which towers over extensive wetlands and eucalypt woodlands. In the dream time, when men could change into animals and animals into men, the creator beings gave shape to the land. When Ginga was a man, he was burned accidentally. To save himself, he rushed into the water and turned himself into a crocodile. To this day, his back is covered with blister-like lumps. Ginga then turned himself to stone, and all his nodules and lumps became part of the landscape. Snakes, using their powerful coils, made stone archways and great sweeps of hills. Gandagich, the ancestral kangaroo, traveled through Kakadu, making mounds of stones and hollowing out depressions. The land so created was bountiful and provided the people with all their spiritual and material needs. In the old days, life for the Aborigines was free and good. No worries then, they say. Their society was vigorous and meaningful, the cohesion of its laws and traditions having been forged over a 40,000-year history. This was before the Balanda, the white people, came and disrupted their existence. Natural food such as turtle eggs and water lily roots were plentiful. Now the traditional lands are almost empty. Diseases from foreign places and other pressures have taken their toll. Few people still live in the wilds of Kakadu. But in the rock shelters where the Gaguju once lived, places that rang with their laughter and reverberated with the drone of didgeridoos, their culture lives on in luminous paintings of hunters, animals, and dangerous spirits. The first artistic stirrings in Kakadu, among the earliest for mankind, began perhaps 30,000 years ago. These paintings are impressions of grasses, hands, or other objects. Many thousands of years later, finely crafted paintings of animals first appeared. Kangaroos and crocodiles were painted larger than life. Delicate images depicting vigorous action followed. A man stalks an emu from behind the cover of a bundle of grass. He spears the giant bird, which cries out as it is mortally wounded. Present-day Aborigines do not relate to the early paintings. They say these were made by the friendly Mimi spirits, and that over the millennia, the Mimis taught the people to paint, but in a different style, one that shows the animal's bones and internal organs. It is known as the X-ray style. Many important images were painted by neither man nor spirit. They came into being when Dreamtime heroes placed themselves on the rocks. These apparitions contain the spirit and the power of the Dreamtime. By painting at these sacred places, the people could draw on the power of the Dreamtime and so ensure that life would continue in all its bounty and diversity. Extensive galleries were fashioned, where generations of artists painted layer upon layer of figures. Deep in the bush, they created some of the world's greatest art treasures. About 150 years ago, a change occurred in the life and art of the Gagoju. Sailing ships brought people from other continents. These people penetrated the Gagoju's land on horseback. They dominated the Aborigines with strange new weapons. And soon, say the Gagoju, these strangers, standing with hands in pockets, told us what to do. The last major rock art in Kakadu was painted in 1964 by a man called Najambolmi. It was a heroic, almost desperate effort to maintain the links with the power of the Dreamtime. A year after completing his masterwork, Najambolmi died. The power of the Dreamtime began to wane.
You know what I said in a cave over there, that painting? 3 buses worry.
The custody of the land and the culture rests on the shoulders of a small group of elderly men. They alone know the laws and traditions. None of this knowledge is written down, and it survives only in the minds of these few. They are the library of the Gagoju. Big Bill Naiji is the philosopher. He is concerned with matters of the spirit and the totality of Aboriginal law. Nippergabariki is the principal keeper of the stories of the Dreamtime, about creator beings and ancestral animals. Felix Ianuk is the custodian of the most sacred ceremonies. Only he still knows the burial rites. Louis Ilkir is the artist, one of the last men left in Kakadu who carries on the traditions of Najambolmi. But he paints only on tree bark, not on rock. A new generation of Gagoju has come of age, but most grew up away from their culture. Naiji's son, Jonathan Yaramana, is one of the few who has returned to learn about Aboriginal law and to assume custodianship. In the modern world, he is doing it in 2 ways: as a Gagoju, following tribal law, and as a park ranger. It is an uneasy burden with which he is still learning to cope.